Hello and welcome to Cargo Masterminds presented by Cargo.one.
I am a big fan.
We wanted to be a part of it. Oh, it's an incredible opportunity.
It was exactly what we needed.
It's really exciting.
When we found out, we were just blown away.
I would say it's perfect for every freight forwarder to use this.
It gives us advantage.
I would encourage my colleagues to go to Cargo.one.
Opinion, it is really a must to have.
I believe this system should be used by every forwarder. Everybody can be a digital forwarder by using Cargo.one. It's just been fantastic.
Cargo Masterminds is our exclusive one-to-one weekly interview series with leaders from the world's leading air cargo and logistic companies. My name is Reji John. Founded in 2006, IndiGo is among the fastest growing low-cost carrier in the world. With its fleet of 330 plus aircraft, the airline is operating 2,000 plus scheduled daily flights and connecting 80 plus domestic destinations and 30 plus international destinations. Under its Reassure, Develop and Create growth strategy, IndiGo has huge ambitions for the future. With an industry-leading order book of nearly 1,000 aircraft, it aims to double its size by the end of the decade and continue to build its domestic and international network. Cargo is an integral part of IndiGo's business. In November 2022, IndiGo began freighter operations with its first A321 converted freighter. IndiGo has 3 converted Airbus A321 freighters. It is operating the cargo planes on domestic and short-haul international routes, complementing the wider cargo network supported by its fleet of passenger aircraft. As per the data made public by the Director General of Civil Aviation, or DGCA, IndiGo has carried over 222,000 tons of cargo in the first 8 months of financial year 2024, that is from April to November 2023. IndiGo has very ambitious plans to grow its cargo business. To discuss IndiGo's cargo plans, I have with me Mark Sutch, Chief Commercial Officer for Cargo at IndiGo, in today's episode of Cargo Masterminds, presented by Cargo.one. Mark joined IndiGo in March 2023. Mark has over 25 years of experience in the airline business across numerous geographies and verticals. Before joining IndiGo, Mark had a 25-year career with Cathay Pacific Airways that included leading the commercial side of the airline's cargo division. Between his career at Cathay Pacific and joining IndiGo, Mark was Chief Commercial Officer for the startup airline CMA CGM Air Cargo. Mark joins me from IndiGo headquarters in New Delhi. Mark, welcome to Cargo Masterminds. Such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Reggie. Always a pleasure to see you.
Mark, bring us up to speed with the recent changes in the cargo structure at IndiGo, from a separate roles for domestic and international cargo into one combined role, both for domestic and international cargo. What does that indicate of IndiGo's vision for cargo in the future?
Okay, Reggie, I think, to answer that, it's worth looking back, as you've stated a little bit about the history of IndiGo. Founded in 2006, only 17 years young, I think we should say. IndiGo started accepting cargo about 2 years after it started its passenger operations. If you fast forward to today, there's been a lot of changes in the last 18 months with regard to cargo business. And 2 of them in particular have been, as you rightly pointed out, the introduction of freighter aircraft, the A321 converted freighter, but also wide-body passenger operations. We have 2 flights a day between India and Turkey, Istanbul, one from Delhi, one from Bombay, operated by 777 aircraft. So if you take the freighter business plus the wide-body passenger aircraft, you can understand we've moved from a bulk loading type of cargo to palletized cargo for the first time. So when that was introduced, I think it was felt that we really needed to concentrate on that particular part of the business. A lot of investment was made in the freighters. And obviously with the 777, you get great capacity. So that's what's happened. I came on board. The reality is, however, if you look at the IndiGo business, there's a massive synergy between amazing domestic network we have here in India, which is, as you said, over 80 destinations, right? And of course, the synergy with the international business. And as we looked at it, we felt that it was important to bring those back together. So we've had the learning now and the introduction of the freighter 777, and now we've got the domestic piece, Reji. And even on that piece, we're really looking at how we can integrate the freighter domestically. And you will have seen recently, we've started flights to Guwahati. We had a flight recently to Hyderabad, and we intend to grow that more as time goes on.
Mark, what was your brief to you when you joined IndiGo or decided to join IndiGo in March 2023? And has the brief changed with a change in your role? And what is your vision for IndiGo's cargo business?
Okay, well, look, you alluded to my previous career when I was at Cathay, obviously. A big network carrier, a very significant freighter fleet, very significant wide-body fleet. I think it was that experience that was bringing me to IndiGo. As I mentioned to you, we've introduced the freighter. We now have the two 777s operating between India and Istanbul. And with that, my brief was to get that up and running. And like any brief from any CEO, it's to grow the business. You talked at the beginning about IndiGo's strategy. A part of that create strategy is a renewed focus on cargo. So that's really part of my brief, is to make these assets work, to grow the business. Having said that, we've built a very strong domestic cargo business after the last 17 years. So really, it's how we bring all of this together and to take it forward and keep growing.
Can you give us a sense of your available annual cargo capacity, and in FY 2023, how much cargo did IndiGo carry in the bellies of your passenger network? And in the two freighters, one of them actually you started operating in November 2022 in the same fiscal.
When it comes to narrow body aircraft, it's very, very difficult to calculate capacity. And I would challenge anyone to do that very accurately compared to a wide body fleet. The reason being that narrow body aircraft by default are very, very sensitive to the available payload. You have different, passenger, your route, weather on a particular day. It can really change your payload from, 1 to 2 tons as much in a day, which is 100% change or 50% change. So in terms of capacity, I think it's better we actually just look at, what we carried. And that's the figure I look to. In the year, we've carried 308,000 tons in financial year 2023. On the freighters, you talked about the freighters. We've actually got 3 operating now with IndiGo, A321 converted freighters. To date, the freighters uplifted just over 8,500 tons, which I think is an impressive number. Obviously, we've got a way to go. But in terms of capacity, very difficult, Reji, obviously, because of the narrow body nature, to give you the available capacity. We also have the 777s. As you know, the 777-300ER is a phenomenal aircraft when it comes to cargo. And for us, we're getting very good capacity on that.
Anyway, we have the available cargo carried for the first 8 months of FY 2024, which I said about. It's over 222,000 tons. And you said for FY 23, it was over 300,000. When you look at FY 24, what do you think will be the cargo volume carried? Is there a chance that you will cross the figures of FY 2023?
Yeah, I think in a nutshell, yes. Based on current trends, we've still got a few months to go. We're looking to get to about 350,000 tons for the financial year, which is a good 10% growth, which is what we're sort of expecting, I think, over the coming years as well.
Mark, how well utilized are your 3 freighter assets?
Obviously, we took delivery of these just under a year ago. I'm delighted to say that in December, we operated 138 freights across our freighters. The 3rd freighter came in November. So December, we had a very strong start to the month, obviously tapered off towards the end, as it does in the freighter business globally with the post-Christmas effect. But that was 138 freighters. And I'm delighted to say they're going to, destinations both east and west. It's an aircraft that we've had in service now for less than a year, but we're starting to get to know how to use them. The other thing is, I would, as they say that, many people, when they think of IndiGo, they don't necessarily think about freighters. So we've had to get the awareness out there and to prove that we can operate them well with a service level that is as good as I think we have on our passenger side.
I think you are a best person suited to answer a question on freighter operations. You're part of Cathay, operating some of the biggest birds. But what is your evaluation of your freighter network in the current market environment of falling yields and dropping rates? And what is your plan for freighters? Is there an opportunity for freighter operators to operate their assets efficiently and profitably in a market like India, at least in the domestic market?
Yeah, I think, look, we'll talk about domestic and international. If you look at India, it's a market I know well because, I was based here 5 years, as you know, at Cathay. The figure is about 80% of import-export air cargo is carried by non-Indian carriers. That's very much a result of the makeup of the domestic fleets of Indian-based carriers, predominantly narrow body, very few freighters. But what that tells me is there's a lot of potential here for us. We've invested in these freighters, having had a very successful cargo experience, I guess, during COVID. It was obviously very tough for the passenger business, but as well as I do, how cargo, kept many airlines going, and people started to understand the importance of air cargo when they previously hadn't really seen it. So I'm very bullish about what we can do in India, certainly international, right? I think there's a rebalancing that can be done there. And, we're already playing a part in that with our freighters that we've had, recently serving between Vietnam, Hong Kong to India. We have operations into the Middle East and a few other in the region. Domestically, we're now putting a new focus on that. We haven't been really doing much in the domestic market with the exception of some charter work for specific customers. However, we're re-looking at that fleet now and how we integrate the international piece with our domestic bit. As I mentioned earlier, we've started operations into Guwahati now, which I think is interesting. It's a very powerful base in the Northeast. We see potential there. We've started operations into Hyderabad as well. And we intend to try and build these into scheduled services going forward.
Mark, how bullish are you on India and its air cargo potentials? What do you think will help freighter operators in India to be really successful?
Well, yeah, Reggie, I'm bullish on India full stop. So that's a good sign. In a country that I think is growing as fast as India is, air freight plays a vital role. Aviation in general plays a vital role, but my piece is air freight, and I'm very bullish on it. The challenge I think that we have in the cargo business and operating freighters in particular is the imbalance between flows. There's a lot of imports coming in from the east into India, but not a lot of export going to the east. Likewise, to the west, there's quite a lot of export and not a lot of import. So it's trying to manage those balances. If you look at many freighter operators that come into India, they're doing it as a bit of a stop on the way to somewhere. So they're kind of part loads going on. For us, it's a little bit more difficult. It's predominantly third and fourth freedom traffic flows, mainly as a result of our network. So for me, that's a challenge, but that's a challenge I have. And it's not, I think, a challenge that the Indian market has in general, which is that, there's going to be great growth in this market going forward. Post-COVID, we all hear about the China Plus One strategy. India will certainly be a benefit of that. And as far as we're concerned, IndiGo's got a long-term vision. We've taken these freighters on because we believe that the growth in what we've seen in India in the last few years is going to continue. And so for me, I'm bullish. We talk a bit about the market at the moment. Yeah, we've gone through a really tough 2 years in cargo, and we know that post-COVID, there was a real COVID sort of, I guess, a real hangover afterwards in terms of rates and sort of available tonnage out there in terms of demand. Having said that, I think I read it earlier this week that November figures that IATA put out, there was an 8.2% growth in global tonnage, which is fantastic. It shows a bit of a bounce back. I mean, some of that is obviously different growth rates in different regions, and I'm not saying South Asia is necessarily the strongest, but I think we're coming out of a very tough 2 years, and to me, there is some light at the end of the tunnel, and we tend to be we very much tend to be part of that growth story going forward.
Mark, I want you to focus a little more on your two B777 passenger aircraft flying to Istanbul from Mumbai and Delhi. Are you able to maximize the capacity with cargo loads on a regular basis?
Yeah, look, to me, they've been a really fantastic success story. When I started in IndiGo back in March, we just started operating these flights. And to us, this was completely new. This concept of having pallets on a wide-body passenger aircraft, IndiGo, before that, has all narrow body. So I think the team that introduced it have done a great job. We're doing very, very well on it. It's obviously subject to the payload that we get. They're very high-density aircraft, therefore there's a big baggage component. We're getting, on average, I'd say from Bombay, 10 plus tons of flight of available capacity, and from Delhi, a little bit more, about 15 tons. So, look, they're very much an integral part of our cargo strategy at the moment, and I think we're making the most of it. It's been new selling for us, Reggie, because, as a domestic operator, we've been mainly dealing with domestic customers. We're now entering that space of multinational forwarders, working with them, getting them to understand that we have these aircraft. I mean, a lot of people probably aren't aware of it at the moment, right? But we're putting ourselves out there, and we're getting some really good momentum, which for me is a real pleasure.
Mark, in your earlier answer, you mentioned about the trade imbalance. So there is a lot of import coming in from east, and there is a lot of export going into the west. But when it comes to specific commodities, India is known for pharma, perishables, and e-commerce cargo, both domestic and international. How close are you to developing specific air products for these key cargo commodities? What are your key priorities, and where will investment go in developing such products?
Well, look, I'll start by saying I think products are a very, very important attribute for air cargo. And we've seen that, and many of the world's top leading cargo airlines do a fantastic job in that space. It's a little bit of chicken and egg, though, because to develop a product, I think you really need to have the right capacity. And that's not necessarily bulk loading capacity. It's the freighter capacity, which we now have, and the palletized cargo, because a lot of these products you look at, whether it's heavy, DG or pharma, it tends to favor operators that operate skid cargo, pallet cargo. So we are working on it, and I see it as something very important. By default, actually, we do actually carry quite a few products, and we categorize our products internally here at IndiGo, and we offer a product, particularly in the domestic market. So about 13% of our domestic traffic is perishable. 13% is actually e-commerce, and the way in which we measure that is we're working with e-commerce customers. Okay, so it's not that we have an end-to-end e-commerce solution, something, again, we will be working on, but it's the customers we're working with, and we know that they're providing us e-commerce. When it comes to pharma, it's probably about 7,500 tons a year. It's only 2% of our business. Again, I would say that most of the pharma business, particularly the high-end non-generic drugs, tend to favor skid cargo. And we're working towards these products. And as a business grows, I have to say it's a very vital part of something we must do to make sure we complete that strategy of taking IndiGo's cargo to the next level.
How close are you to building partnership and interline agreements with carriers from around the world to ensure that your customers have access to capacity through a reliable and a global network?
We are growing our partnerships. On the airline side, on the passenger side, as you know, we have many interline partners and codeshare agreements. In cargo, it works differently. They're not such, deep codeshares, as it were, but interline agreements. I think probably the most obvious one to our customers is the relationship we have with Turkish Cargo. That's as a result of our wet lease operation that we have with Turkish and our codeshare that we do, again, as I said, on the 777. So that's going well. And other partnerships we've signed up. I don't want to name specific airlines because these agreements tend to have a level of confidentiality about them. But I'm very much of the belief that partnerships are very important, both here on the domestic side, where we have, Reji, 26 bonded stations, where we work with a lot of airlines who can tender cargo in an offline position that they have, or an offline port that they have in India, clear their customs. We can bring it to their gateway in Delhi or Mumbai or Bangalore or Chennai, and then they can take it from us to wherever it may be in Europe or the United States. So that's another key part of it. It's not so obvious this is a partnership, but a lot of partners are using us for that domestic part of the business, which I think is a very unique strength that we have at IndiGo Cargo.
Mark, what is your reading of the Indian aviation and air cargo infrastructures built up to reach the 10 million tons annual cargo throughput by 2030, which is an ambitious target?
You've asked me this question before, Reji, I think at a conference. It's a very ambitious target. I think domestically now we're at just under, we're about 750,000 tons, 750,000 tons, all airlines combined, from the figures that come out from the DGCA. International, I think, again, from the figures I've seen, it's about 1.5 million tons, of which we, as IndiGo, are very small. We're growing our international. We're probably only about 2% of that. You add that together, we're short of 3 million tons. We've got 6 or 7 years to go. It's an ambitious target, but we like ambitious targets, and we'll certainly do our bit to try and make sure India and the aspirations of the country in terms of that throughput is reached.
The global air freight market is going through a very challenging time because of various factors, which includes that of global macroeconomic factors, which are constricting demand and making cargo yield fall very sharply. What is your assessment of the current market conditions, and what do you think is their impact on IndiGo?
Current market positions, as I touched on earlier, there's the last report, which is valid for November, that came out from IATA this week. There was some bright signs. November had a growth of 8.2%, I think it was, of demand, of tonnage carried globally. As I said, before, it's it's regionalized, it's different levels. It's been very, very tough in my sort of 25 years of the business, of which a good bit of that has been in cargo. I think what we've seen in the last 18 months or so has probably been the lowest I've ever seen. Therefore, I'm pretty bullish going forward. That said, this business is very susceptible to what's going on around the world. And, recently we've got mini crisis, I guess, in the Red Sea and the Suez. Some ocean companies, deciding to avoid that area. The Panama Canal's got its own issues. So let's see. There's often a correlation between these issues and air cargo. Sometimes air cargo can benefit from them, and can help sort of ease supply chains where they're not usually doing it. But overall, as the market, I feel we've bottomed out, and that things are gonna look better in what I think is let's assume, Reggie, a fairly normal world environment. Let's see.
And Mark, finally, what is the outlook for 2024? How promising or depressing is it going to be for the air freight industry and for cargo operators? And that now that you have 3 freighters, I'm sure that all the 3 freighters are deployed and it's operational. And do you think that you would like to have more freighters?
Okay, so going forward, first of all, let's take India. I'm super positive about India, and that's where we're sitting in IndiGo is very much part of the success story, I think, of India. So I'm going to look very glass half full for us and for the country in general. That said, I heard a very interesting stat, Reggie, that in 2024, about half the world's population are going to have a general election of some form. And you think about it, you've got elections here in India, you've got them in Brazil, Mexico, US, Russia, Indonesia. It's a phenomenal year for world politics. That sometimes can have a link to what happens in world trade. The sensitivities between the two. But from where I sit, and I'm lucky to be sitting, in India at the moment, which is a real story of growth, and I think is going to be one for many years to come. So I'm bullish about that. As far as IndiGo is concerned, we have the 3 freighters. We don't have plans for additional freighters at the moment. We constantly review our business. The deployment of the freighters has been picking up over the last year. As I said, in December, we operated 138 flights. I think if we can, when we reconnect, probably in a few months, somewhere here in India, I'll be able to tell you some good stories. We've got lots of plans. And I think if you look at our freighters over the next few months, you'll see their utilization rapidly increasing as we sort of learn how to use them better, I guess, in a way, by engaging with our customers and making sure we have, the right solutions. They have the faith that, IndiGo Cargo is as good as we are on the passenger side, which is, we have a phenomenal network, we're value driven, and, most importantly, we have a great on-time performance.
India by IndiGo Cargo. Mark, thank you so much. Such a pleasure to have this conversation with you for Cargo Mastermind series. All the best to you and to your team.
Thanks, Reggie. Thanks very much. Take care.
That was Mark Sutch, IndiGo's Chief Commercial Officer for Cargo. I hope you enjoyed watching this interview. Rate us and review us. Please like, comment, share, and recommend this series to your friends. And more important, if you're not a subscriber of our YouTube channel, please do subscribe now and click the bell icon so that you do not miss any of our new videos. An audio podcast of this series is available on Spotify and on Amazon Music. I highly recommend you to check them out. Join me next Monday for another episode of Cargo Masterminds presented by Cargo.one. Until we meet again, have a great week ahead. Thank you.